AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. And welcome. Have a good or happy Saturday, everybody. If you're watching us live this afternoon or this evening, well, I guess this is afternoon for everybody. And we're doing Ask Gun Questions. Like the introduction says, we've been doing this for quite a while. I was just thinking as that introduction went by, that means that Google form has been up, well, not for 15 years, but for a heck of a lot of years. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, we go live on Saturdays and we answer questions. This week we're being joined again by Clovertac from Texas. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for joining.
Hey, appreciate the invite.
So I got on the screen here the Gun Rights Policy Conference. Every year for the last 36 years, the Second Amendment Foundation hosts the Gun Rights Policy Conference once a year, an annual event. Now, normally it travels state to state and from gun-friendly state and city to less friendly cities and states, like alternatively each year. For the last couple of years, it's been virtual, and that virtual event is happening right now. So I've just been watching that live. If you want to watch it, I'll drop the link in there. They have a couple of 4 premieres, prepared videos that are premiering now. They're in the second of 4 as we speak, and they're about to start talking about gun culture with Andrew Gottlieb, Chris Chang, and Charlie Cook. Anyway, so we're doing Ask Gun Questions, and if anybody shows up, please let us know that you're out there and maybe what state you're in. If Clover's got an idea for another poll or something to ask people, that might be something to kind of get the interactivity going. So I usually, when I go live, I leave about a quarter of the screen or however much real estate this is, so we can watch the comments as they're coming in. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just fixing to say, so, polls, since this is kind of the, gun chat Q&A, I mean, we've got some gunsmithing stuff. There's seems to be a lot of legal stuff that happens. What if we did a poll on like your favorite action or something, right? Bolt action, semi-auto, lever action, revolver, that sort of thing.
All right, well, with that kind of one, we only get 4 options. So we got we're going to assume that muzzle stuffers don't count. So an action means, something that actually works. So I think trapdoor was the first. We're going to ignore that, I think, because there's not enough of them. You got falling block, rolling block, and then bolt. I'm probably missing some other ancient one.
Yeah, but I mean, I would go with modern. So I would go semi-auto, lever, bolt would be 3, and then you could put another, I guess, in there.
Now, what came first, semi or lever, or full auto, or slide or pump? Because I think slide came before. I think he called it a slide when he invented it, and then it turned into a pump. You know what came first, though? Full auto, slide, or pump?
I don't know, honestly.
I'm pretty sure it was semi-auto. I'm going back to a movie I watched at the Browning Museum. The story goes that when he had a bunch of brothers and he was a little kid, and he took a barrel or something and made a gun out of it and took it out and was shooting it and saw that it was knocking the gas from the expanding gases coming out of the muzzle were knocking the grass over. So he's like, how can I use that pressure to do something? And he made a hole up front, and he made that hole push a piston. And I think he had already made a lever action. And so he made a way to add a new round to the chamber of a falling bolt with a lever, right? So a lever action is really just a falling block, right? With a lever on it, and then a magazine to feed from. And I think that's where he came up with that. And then he figured out, well, if I trap that gas, I can make the lever. And that's where the potato diggers come from. They're just a lever action with a rod on it. And as you shoot, it actuates the lever. Once they figured out, instead of making it a lever to put all that stuff up inside the action, that's where semi-auto comes from. So after all that, he figured out he could attach a pump to the action. So it's It's kind of obvious once you start thinking about what he was doing. He was just evolving the idea of manipulating the action, the part that changes the old case for the new cartridge,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just fiddling with that, changing angles and creating levers and utilizing the gas that comes out of it. Now, I think he did everything with either manual or gas. I think other people then figured out inertia, right? Like inertia wasn't his thing.
Right.
And that's just where the gun's going to recoil, newtons, whatever, equal and opposite reaction. So as something happens and it recoils in your shoulder, you can take that motion and have just a large enough mass has a tendency to not move. So you let the rest of the gun move around it or in it or under it or whatever. And then that's how you get a reciprocating action by having a mass that's got a tendency to stay in place or on your shoulder or something, usually on your shoulder, I guess. And then the rest of the gun kind of buckles underneath of it. And instead of the gas being captured, the gun just buckles and reduces recoil at the same time manipulating the action.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Inertia actions are some of the smoothest out there.
So I didn't put that one in there. So that went with bolt, pump, semi-auto, and level means lever, really. I don't know how to type and spell at the same time. All right, so digging in, that's a good question to start us off with. We got a couple of people joining us. People said, hey. AAF, Michael, and M. Gabriel jumping in. All right, so digging into questions, we got a couple. Again, as the thing mentions, it's askgunquestions.com. One of the cool things about starting doing stuff on the internet before everybody else is doing stuff on the internet is I got some cool names. One of them is askgunquestions.com. So you can just go there and there's a form. That's all there is. And you can type in a question. And then over the years, we've done different things to respond, all kinds of things. And now we're doing these videos. And I'll probably put the videos over there, some kind of a playlist or something over there. At some point, if I had enough time and energy, I would go through all the different ways. I can't even remember them all the different ways we've come up with to address these questions. There's hundreds of questions in here, and we've addressed them in different formats or different methods over the years. All right, so the ones that came in since last week are just two of them. One of them came in second or twice. Can you own an H&K 416 rifle in Massachusetts? And can you order online? So I never can tell when you read questions like this. Let me ask first, do you think this is a kid or a criminal or a foreigner or somebody who's not with it, or what do you think?
Somebody probably that's just new to things. I would say more than anything.
I see them weird, but I guess I shouldn't, because the wording, I think a kid would have good wording because they're in school and they learn their words and everything. At least most kids, I think, would try to be writing well. So when I see it worded weird, I'm thinking like maybe foreigner. Somebody doesn't speak English as a first language. Okay, so let's see again. So can you own an H&K 416? Well, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm wrong, an H&K 416 is full auto. So it means probably something like a 416. Or am I wrong? Is there a 416 semi-auto?
Well, there's that. I know there's that 22 long rifle one or whatever. The 416.
So it's more like, is it just like saying AR? It's not like a specific gun. It's just a platform now.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think so, because they are in various calibers and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's an
like I know there's a 22 LR version, and then I also know that there's the 5.56.
Okay, well that's what I'm saying. Okay, so that's what I was getting at. According to the Wikipedia, which is always right, you can just go to Wikipedia and you always have the answers. The HK 416 is the real one, right? Semi and full auto, right? And then the civilian model is called the MR 556 or MR 762, depending on the caliber. In Europe, they have a different metric name, but here the MR 556. So that's what he's really saying. Can you get an M6? Can you get the full auto? No. Because why? Because they're super expensive and they're at post 86. So in 1986, they made a stupid situation happen where can't buy anything created after that date. So it's everything since 1986 is verboten for us plebes. But Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to own a 416, but that MR556 is a semi-auto version. So that caveat in Massachusetts, do you know?
Um, no, I don't. I know that the 22 long rifle version of that 416, the variants that are made, probably so. My answer would be probably so on the 22 long rifle, probably not on anything center fire. That would just be my guess with my understanding of Massachusetts regulations, which are pretty ridiculous. Um, but I don't know that for certain.
I was just going to look at the gun rights policy conference because I know that in this segment, Charlie Cook, isn't he in Massachusetts?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say he's the one to ask, at least for his people I know. He's probably the one I could get the quickest answer and he would understand it. But yeah, I have no idea. I don't try to keep up just because I only got X amount of brain power and I'm trying to keep
Right.
track of 2A history and our existing history is bad enough. Trying to keep up with changing and current laws is tough. And when I do the stuff like the maps and things, I don't retain that. There's just a lot of data there. So yeah, sorry, I don't have an answer for that one. We're going to mark it as green just so that we're going to answer to the best of our ability. We're not lawyers or nothing. Now, can you order online? The last one. How would you answer that? Well, go ahead.
From H&K, no. From a distributor of some sort, have it shipped to an FFL. Yes, possibly. I mean, that's going to be the overall answer to that would be yes, right? The legalities aside and the logistics aside, the overall answer is yes. Can you buy it straight from HK online? No. Can you have it shipped straight to your door from HK? No. Can you have it shipped straight to your door from anybody? No. But being able to facilitate the I guess start the process anyway. The answer would be yes.
Yeah, that's how I was going to try to caveat is that, yeah, you can order it online, but you can't pick it up or have it delivered. But yeah, you can order it. But you made a good point. You're not going to order it straight from H&K, but you're not going to order it from most anything. You're not going to order from Ford. You're not going to order from, Apple. Well, okay, that's a bad example. You're not going to order from most companies directly because it's just too difficult at this point. And I don't think we'd want to live in a world where every factory could keep track of every end user, but factories can't keep track of all the ins and outs of keeping track of every end user. So they sell them to middlemen or wholesalers, which then sell them to store chains, and then they distribute stuff. So normally you're buying something from a distributor or like a really big online entity, which is effectively a distributor, or your local gun shop. So sometimes you can order it like Clover said, or just everything Clover said. All right, so next one is, let's see. What am I going to get? Now you have to double click on it or something to get it. Anyway, I guess this one's just long enough that it's not going to fit on the screen. But, oh, you know what it is? It's because I'm not magnifying. That'll help. There we go. My state. This is interesting. My state now kind of wipe clean an assault and battery of a family member charge after a 3-year period. But on the federal level is a lifetime charge. Why isn't there a limitation on the federal level too? Right, so maybe it says my state wiped clean an assault and battery of a family member after 3 years. But then the federal level, it's a lifetime charge. So I guess they're saying that automatically something, I don't know enough about law, so I'm not sure what's happening here, but
it's not even.
You have like charges against you get dropped or they're not held against you after 3 years maybe, but at a federal level, usually because federal level crimes exist because you've done something at a heinous level where everybody in the whole country would have a problem with it or is affected by it, like shooting that's a bad example, bombing or interfering with the delivery of product from one place to another is one thing, but interfering with the delivery of product between states.
Right.
That's example. I was going to say shooting at a train, but I didn't want to say shooting, and then it just got weird. But there's just some interstate stuff that they say is a bigger deal than stuff happening in state. going across state lines is potentially taking somebody away from jurisdiction. So who knows what you're doing, like as opposed to accidentally going to the movie and not telling anybody, or going to the movie and accidentally not telling anybody, the next town over, or, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like examples of why federal levels is a bigger deal.
Well,
Maybe.
I was going to jump in and say that's a question for your elected representative more than it is on a ask gun questions. I mean, you need to be involved in the political process, and that is an issue when we have inconsistencies of how different laws and regulations are applied depending on the jurisdictional level, right, of those. So you need to get involved in the political system and be reaching out to some of your representatives and making those discrepancies known. That would be my answer to that question.
Well, just you said that, something made me think too, like lawyers. Like there's got to be lawyers that specialize in retaining your rights or getting your rights back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of times you can have things expunged. I mean, if it's a not a double jeopardy situation, but in this case where you have, federal and at the state level, they wash it clean, overlook it, they whatever after a certain amount of time, then a lot of times after that time, you're right. I mean, it is a legal process and you do have to have a lawyer, but a lot of times you can petition to have that expunged or sealed or whatever after the state releases it. That was interesting.
So, feel free to ask whatever questions you're going to ask. You're going to get whatever answers you're going to get, right?
Right.
I was thinking instead of doing just group of questions, if somebody out there who's paying attention and participating wants to suggest a year or even a month and year, then that'll give us somewhere to focus on grabbing another question out of here. So we usually hit the questions that have come in since the last show or the last time we get together. I think I ditched a show every once in a while when it's appropriate. But then till then, you want to give a month and a year or some kind of anniversary maybe, and we'll get something close to it.
September 2019.
All right, so jump back to 19. We had quite a few come in the month of September. There wasn't one on the 21st of September, but we'll go with the 24th of September. I have a sawed-off shotgun with a screw drilled in the wood under the barrel to attach it. The tip of the screw can be seen when I look in the barrel. Is this gun safe for me to shoot?
Oh. No.
So, no. So, first off, you wouldn't want anything in the barrel because of the way the world works. Go watch Bugs Bunny. And when you shove something in a barrel, that creates pressure, and then the pressure has to go somewhere. And since you put it in the cartridge into the back of the barrel, that means there's a cut or a hole or a slot or something back there, and the rest of the barrel doesn't have any of those things. So where's all that pressure going to go? Right out the back end. So something that can obstruct the barrel, that can stop the projectile from going down it, effectively makes the projectile into a dam, and all that pressure goes to wherever the least amount of resistance is, which is then usually going to be the action, which will open up India, and it's not designed to, so it's going to break stuff as it opens up India, usually projecting those things that it broke off, the lugs of the barrel or some kind of cam or some kind of shear plate, it's pushing all that stuff out of there at you. And since you don't know it's coming, you've got your face and your eyeballs and your cheek and your mouth and everything right there on the pieces that are falling apart. So not a good idea. And with a shotgun, you're probably holding it down by your guts. So now all that stuff is happening next to your pelvis. That's always fun because you got things on your pelvis that I use for other business. So having a sawed-off shotgun with a hole drilled through the wood under the barrel to attach it, and the tip can be seen when I look in the barrel, is telling me that it's either something made out of pot metal like zinc, or just like Matchbox car material, where it seems like metal, but it's really just pressed together amalgam of metal or it's plastic or something. Because there's no way for any kind of screw made on the planet Earth without Superman or some kind of massive equipment to drill into a hardened barrel of a gun, even a old shotgun barrel. But
Not well. That's not necessarily well. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I was going to identify another problem and say that if you drilled and tapped, which you can drill and tap that, right?
oh,
Um,
that's a good point. I would think
so
the top
if
one's
you,
possible. Yeah.
yeah, like a sheet metal screw, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, you could certainly drill and tap. Here's the problem, though. Besides the obstruction, is when you drill completely through that barrel, you've completely screwed the integrity of that barrel. Right now, you're dependent not upon the strength of the barrel of the material that makes the barrel. You're dependent upon the strength of the material in the threads, the tiny threads of that screw. Right? With all of the pressure and the gas and the other things. So, are you going to get cracking that occurs at that hole eventually, and you're going to, split a barrel? And when you get a barrel that splits, that's not fun. Um, so there's all kinds of issues with that. I mean, that's one of the things. If you can't find another barrel to replace it or whatever, that needs to be done away with, probably, or hung on the wall as a look pretty. I wouldn't shoot it. Right, she's muted, or I don't know. Maybe you stepped away for a minute. I don't know, but I do know that I'm by myself talking. So,
Oh, sorry, I left a note in the side chat there.
uh,
Yeah. So I didn't think about tapping. I don't know what I missed there, but
no, I was just talking about how even if you drilled and tapped, right? So if you drilled and tapped, and this is the way, like if you drill a receiver or if you drill because you can drill a scope for like a front sight post or something like that, right? A front sight riser. So the trick is you don't drill all the way through is the thing. And then once you screw that screw down in, it fills that hole. So you got original barrel material, right? It's not a through hole. And then also a lot of times they'll put they'll put some kind of epoxy or thread locker. They do something to help seal the threads and also strengthen the threads. The type of screw that's used for those types of applications as well. But we're talking here that even if you drilled and tap, if it's poking all the way through, then obviously that's not the case, right? And so you're beholden to the type of screw it is. You were talking about inferior metals earlier with zinc and other things. What type of screw it is, and then depending on the depth and all of that of the threads, how much pressure is that receiving, right? Those, and at any time could that hole crack out because of the pressure being applied in that one spot, and then again you end up splitting a barrel or something along those lines.
yeah, that's super creepy in so many ways. So
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Now I would think that would be more a thing coming in from the top where somebody's tapping a scope, but it can definitely happen if on a shotgun where you've got the handguard being attached and maybe there was a screw missing, so they wanted to oversize it. I don't know. I can't even imagine, but yeah,
Well,
it's good.
the fix for that, if you'll notice most shotguns, right, and the way that the handguards are attached, if you're talking, this sounds to me like maybe a break action or something, the way he's explaining it, is they've got a stud that's welded to the barrel, right? And the handguard attaches to the stud. So I don't know of any old shotguns that it's tapped into the barrel. I don't know any setup like that.
No, exactly. And whatever they were doing, it's just super sloppy. So no, I would think,
Yeah.
and that's why I first thought it had to be some kind of wall hanging thing, because the sawed-off shotgun has been a restricted item since 1934. So it's not like you see them laying around. It's not like they're in commonplace. It's not like, oh, I just made my shotgun like that because I see so many of them at the range. They're kind of pointless. You don't see them hunting. You don't see them at the range. They're not super ineffective. They're just not all that great. So there are now firearms, 12 gauge firearms. So I guess it's possible he's talking about she's talking about one of them.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I don't know of a situation where if you legally shortened a barrel, right, on a shotgun, it's got to be 18 inches plus in order to be compliant with NFA. And so that's going to put you way out further than the handguard. So, that concerns me too, that I'm wondering the legalities of all of this to start with. So it's worth mentioning that, if you're talking about less than 18 inches, less than 26 inches overall, you've got an NFA item. And so be mindful of the legalities surrounding that, regardless of whether or not the screw's sticking out, just possession alone, because the ATF, law enforcement, whoever, aren't going to care if it can safely function or not, right? If those dimensions fall within NFA regulations, that's 10 years in a federal penitentiary, regardless, right?
I'm gonna stop short since it's my show and I like to be contrary, but I just don't see that. I mean, I guess it's possible, but and I'm not disregarding. I mean, everything you said is correct. I'm just saying, in my 50 freaking years of walking around with guns and stuff, I just don't see people accidentally pulling out sawed-off shotguns. Like I said before, they've been around since, or they've been restricted since 1934. You got to have paperwork and stuff, so it's just more of a pain in the ass for most people to deal with than to make one. So while you see them in movies constantly, like if they're commonplace, I just haven't seen hardly any. In fact, seriously, like very, 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 very few, except for movies, little shot-off shotguns sorting around. But I have seen wall hangers and stuff. And here's the thing: when I say very few, because the ones I have seen are most often, or almost literally almost every one I'm thinking of now, is an old black powder. Before NFA rules apply, a gun that's not even an action, an old muzzle. And if you have primitive actions, or you have an actual antique, then you get what's called a coach gun, or just something that looks cool. Like I call it a wall hanger, something that's just, there. And oftentimes those were made out of like basically matchbox car material, and they're only there to hang on the wall because of movies and because they look cool. Like the shotgun wedding, like I'm gonna, the actual old bouncer, or the riding shotgun, who's on the gun rights policy conference right now, is riding shotgun with Charlie. I hit this to live. Right, the riding with shotgun. So if somebody wants that kind of thing, I could see having, and I definitely have seen those, and that's where I'm thinking those kind of guns, those replicas, often they have something like a big hole or a big bolt or stud in the front of the barrel, just to let you know as a visual clue. Like, this ain't a gun. It might look like one, but this is a prop. This is for movies, because that's the kind of stuff they would do before they had to put the orange fronts on them. Is just somebody would put something in the barrel so you'd know right away. There was no way to load it, right away. It's not a muzzle loader. But he's saying a screw can be seen. It's hard to know. So anyway, I'm asking people if they want to give us a month and a year. You want to give us another one? To find a question, a month and a year.
That, or just jump a few questions from where we were at for now.
All right. Well, I'm just going to jump to, I have a Man Liquor Schnauzer full stock rifle, chambered in 30-06, imported by Stoger, I believe in the 1950s. It has a single trigger. I would like to have the double set trigger. Do you know of anyone that could sell a complete trigger and floor plate? Wow. So I have no idea. I know kind of what's happening here. A Man Liquor is a metric European thing. Full stock rifle is boring. 30-06 is a true caliber that won World War I. Stoger is a name. 1950s happened. Single trigger is normal. Would like to have a double set trigger. What do you even need two triggers to kill a deer for, is what I'm questioning. Do you know anybody that would sell that? I hope not. So can you answer this one better?
I'm gonna say I guess my thoughts would maybe, number one, I would say check out, and this is just directing them probably to get some more information, right? Because I'm not going to be able to really to touch this. So number one, I would say maybe hit up. I see a lot of Steyr Mannlicher stuff on the Sniper Hide forums. So I would say check out that. And then also look up maybe Gun Garage from, they're located in Arkansas. So look them up. You'll have to get their number. They got a website, but it's just an info page type thing, right? but that'll give you their phone number. But Gun Garage out of Arkansas, either one of those places will probably get you some information. If such things available, yeah. Now, I do know that for a fact. Now, the particulars of what you need and what's required to put that in or change that over, depending on the exact model, I'm not up to speed enough on those rifles to be able to tell you that. And so that's why I say there's a little more direction. Go check out those sources and see if they can clear it up for you.
I'm thinking I'm going to put yellow in there just to say like we've addressed it, but we're not experts on it. But I appreciate what you did there because that's really teach a person to fish, right? Anybody can answer a specific question, but it's not like knowledge just sits there or gets placed on you or something. You discover it through experience and by watching or listening to others, participate in other conversations, and figuring out who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't, and then experiencing some conversations with them. So a lot of that can be done or has been done, period, and can be searched on the public forums, right? Public boards are awesome resources and are the way that we stand on the shoulders. Unlike the opposite, the stupid storage sheds in the back alleys of the internet, where you have to have an invitation and have a secret knock and be able to get in, and then nobody knows this worthwhile or worthless info that's back there because it stinks and smells like fish and stuff. All right, we don't enough about Discord. Let's keep going. Chris asks in real life here, how do I know if I'm 100% legal before I constitutional carry? Before I use constitutional carry, before I find out I'm not by a state trooper? Well, go ahead. How are you gonna?
Well, I'm pretty sure Chris is in Texas, right? So, first of all, and Chris should, I'm pretty sure he is. So I've got a YouTube Shorts that links to, or you could Google Boo it or DuckDuckGo it or whatever, a PDF that is a great FAQ Q&A type thing for Texas constitutional carry from Texas Law Shield. So I would read that. Long as you're going by that, you should be okay. So one thing to understand with this is that in order to it's like the question is weird because it said to know if I'm 100% legal before I find out I'm not by a state trooper. Well, you may be 100% legal, and maybe that law enforcement officer doesn't understand, right? So just keep in mind, just because you're doing things legal, even if you've got a license to carry here, just because you're doing things legal doesn't mean you're going to run into, law enforcement officers are not the end all be all. Doesn't mean you're going to run into a law enforcement officer that doesn't know all the myriad of laws and regulations and nuances, right? And hassles you one way or another. So, that's where being not being belligerent and being, fairly cordial. I mean, obviously be adamant about, no, I mean, I don't understand, the way I understand it and this, that, and the other, right? Being able to say that to them. I mean, at the end of the day, don't cause yourself any more hassle would be my recommendation than you have to. But yeah, I mean, that resource, it's pretty cut and dry. I think Chris, my answer to you would be, don't fret or worry over it as much as you are. You can create yourself more stress and hardship and everything else, right? From what I know with Chris out there, he followed along with us on the constitutional carry thing. He's probably already downloaded or looked at that PDF from Texas Law Shield. And so I get the hesitation because that's what happens, right, G, when people get constitutional carry or they get, first get access to a CHL or a license to carry or whatever, right? Is people have that nervousness about them or whatever. But, understand it to the best of your knowledge, go about your day-to-day life, as long as you're not doing shady, nefarious, weird looking things. If you're open carrying a, 12-inch revolver in basketball shorts with socks and sandals and you know, I don't even know, if you look weird, right? Pants down around to your ankles and your underwear up to your chest, type thing or whatever, right? If you're looking weird, if you're being shifty eyed and especially depending on what neighborhoods you're in, and you find yourself in a bad neighborhood that's prone to gang violence or, anything like that. I say gang violence, gangs in general or something like that, right? Or you're in the part of town where, for the most part they deal with, drugs and lots of crime, then you know, yeah, I mean that's stay away from those situations and you're gonna be fine. I mean, wasn't that what you say, G? I mean, your opinion on that? I mean, don't look like a criminal, don't act like a criminal, don't and you're probably gonna be okay regardless.
Yeah, and Matt, and I mean everything you said was valid. I was listening there as I'm chatting, trying to let people know that the third section of the GRPC is happening in about 30 minutes. They just ended section 2, and no one's in there, letting them know that a section 3 is next. And there's not even a link in their comments or in their description. Sorry.
Wow.
Just can't not do that. I mean, right?
Wow. It's not
Anyway,
surprising.
sorry. Well, I would like to say they're learning, but come on, they've insisted on doing it for the second year like this. And we got Julianne, Andrew's wife, is in there.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry. So I don't disagree with anything you said there. I guess all I was going to add to it was shit. What was I going to add? That think about how many other people are constitutional carry for the first time. Also, so if in other words, let's say you walk around going every time you constitutional carry for the first time. Think of what this is going to sound like when you go outside. It's not like you're the only cricket making that noise, right? Like if a police officer was concerned and they're like, "Uh oh, today's the first day of constitutional carry. I'm going to arrest the first person I see doing it at all wrong." They're going to go out there and it's going to be like a crowd of so you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you are not the only person constitutional carrying, and you
Sure.
are legit. You're being cautious of it. More than likely, you've already CCW'd. So it's just like CCWing.
No, he did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's it's very similar to the first time CCWing, except that yeah, you get to exercise rights. I only got to exercise a permitted reduction of an infraction, which was awesome. I'm not discounting it, but y'all getting to execute rights. So very much like how nowadays third world countries in a single generation graduate into first world countries because we've already figured out how to do it and we now facilitate the process.
Mhm.
Y'all are experiencing going from infringement to constitutional freedom. uh, Appreciate that. That is not a step that everyone was offered, that a lot of people are still restricted from, but was not just the way it is. That's it's eventuality of the state of conditions that places like Arizona, the 9 dudes that got together at a Waffle House one day, 9 years later, constitutional carry was a reality. So July 30th of 2010, when constitutional carry was enacted in Arizona here, that became the precedent that allowed all the other states to get it. And now Texas, the 21st state, just got it on September 1st, right? So think about that. That is a pretty cool step. You just keep seeing that meme where somebody's like standing on the ground and it's in front of a set of small stairs. And it's like the first step is like mindset. The next step is like training. The next step is like vetting your gear. And the next step is like, operating at an expert level. And the kid is like going, from the ground to like the 4th step, how kids will do, so it's like one of those memes, like everybody just wants to go from 0 to hero. Y'all are getting to go from infringement to complete constitutional freedom. And that doesn't just happen. Y'all aren't like, it's nice to think that y'all are entitled to it, but we're all entitled to it. But the way that you create that the way that you achieve that is through a shit ton of effort. So there's a little nagging.
Right.
Let's see. So that was a real life question. Is a dismantled gun makes it too short NFA. What do you think that was all about? Was that in regard to the one question?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
I'm not sure.
Maybe if a dismantled gun makes it too short NFA? No, if you take apart a gun, it's no longer a gun, and then you just have parts. There are states where having the parts to a registered item is illegal, legally got issues, and that sucks.
Mhm. There is a word dealing when you deal with NFA and you deal with enforcement and all of that called readily, right? So as long as you don't have the things that it can readily be assembled. So in other words, if I plan on, let's say I plan on building a suppressor, which is currently regulated under the NFA, and I've got some pipe here, and I got some round stock, and I've got all the things I need to mill and put on the lathe and build that suppressor, right? The raw material, right? I could have the raw material at the same time that I have the intent, right? Because that raw material could be used for any variety of things, right? It's at which point that I put that on the lathe and I utilize that intent to start turning down and cutting and milling things that I better have that NFA paperwork, right? So it works the same way within the firearm aspect as well, for the most part.
We've got the poll coming up here as soon as YouTube censorship lets my poll show up. I was going to say, give us, I can't find my comment. What's up with that? YouTube censorship took my comment. So give us a month and date. Why is it not giving me my own comment? It's messed up. Give us a month and a date for the for any questions, so we can find a random question over here. But so for your favorite type of action, that poll. Oh, maybe I put give us your month and date for a question in the gun rights policy conference chat accidentally. Oops. Anyway, give us for the poll. What was your favorite type of action? Well, kind of understandably, or I guess you could assume this is going to happen. Semiauto wins 41% of the votes. By the way, 12 votes, so not many people participated yet. But so that's just a couple of votes. But then Bolt got 25% over Pump, which one? Well, 25% for both Bolt and Pump, but both of those over level. So
Not surprised.
yes, I like lever more than Pump. And definitely more than Bolt. Bolt can go suck it. Bolt's not good for nothing.
Bolt, you have a the problem with lever, and to an extent Pump as well, is certain caliber cartridge limitations, where with a Bolt you can do pretty much. I mean, Bolt is like the wildcatter's dream, right? Bolt, you can just about do any cartridge, anything you want. So just keep that in mind. I mean, as far as fun factor and stuff like that, yeah, I would definitely put lever over Pump. I think there's a few pumps out there that are cool. The little gallery gun 22s and stuff like that are pretty darn neat. But outside of that, I would prefer lever.
Living life in the fast lane like I do, I think I ain't got time for Pump or for bolts. So
right. Even a straight pull?
I don't go for that business. How can a straight pull even exist? It's magic. Plus, it can't be strong if it's
witchcraft. It's witchcraft.
Cams or something. No. I mean, it might work for 9mm or some cartridge that just kind of gently nudges the bolt backward, but not for calibers. No way.
A 300 Win Mag I ripped off for Savage. I wouldn't call that a 9mm caliber.
There's a 300 Win Mag with a straight pullback bolt.
Oh yeah.
There's no way I'm sitting behind that. Not with my arm. What stops it from coming back on a straight pull then?
There are safety mechanisms, yeah, because it's got it's when it for the lockup. If the lockup doesn't happen properly, then there's safety mechanisms in play.
But that's what I'm saying. What's the lock? Like it comes out. There's got to be some kind of massive lugs or something.
When you manually pull it back from the bolt, right? And this is again, I don't know the overall schematic, and certainly didn't design let's say the Savage Impulse, right, which is the one I'm talking
Well,
about.
I'm thinking it's
But
got to
the
be
way
like.
I understand it, when you pull back on that bolt handle, there is a spring detent mechanism that essentially unlocks another portion of it, right?
Right.
And so if you get pressure that pushes from the bolt face back, that doesn't unlock. Makes sense, because that all is
Yeah.
still in play. It
No,
has to be manipulated from the bolt handle.
you could have any kind of situation where there's like a keystone, and that bolt is what, or the bolt handle is what pulls the keystone, and then the rest of it's going to disassemble and fall away. But whatever. Well, earlier, 2A is saying the 7 whatever Swiss guns. I don't go for metric stuff, but they were doing that on the gun rights policy conference earlier. Somebody was trying to do the quote from whoever it was. What's his name? Slow blog? No. Guns and Money. Send lawyers and Guns and Money guy. He was saying this. He said it as poorly as I'm going to say it, but that whole quote about like somebody asked the Swiss general or the Swiss king or whatever it was, like how can you remain neutral when Nazis got twice as many like stormtroopers as you got riflemen? And he goes, "Oh, that's simple. I'll just ask my guys to shoot twice." And like, that's how Switzerland remained neutral. So I'll give them that. But at the same time, they're shooting down a hill at Nazis. So easy enough. You can just kick a rock down, knock a Nazi down.
Right.
Nazis died from 9 millimeters.
And they had straight pulls, which was faster. So there you go.
Well, no, that's the thing. I'm saying that I know they had straight pulls, but I'm just saying I don't know if when you're shooting down, why you're not as worried about your bolt coming backwards because you got gravity.
That's a valid point. Well, I'll accept that.
Well, and I'll keep saying Nazis got knocked over by 9 millimeters. So how hard could it be to knock over a Nazi?
Right.
All right, so let's go with the 9 millimeter question then. I have a Beretta 9 millimeter. That's too bad. And lately, when I go to the range, it's not always ejecting empty shells. What should I do?
Make sure you clean it really well. First of all,
so that's a good point because a lot of people don't pay attention, or they think wiping it or something is cleaning, and there's some things in it. What's a Beretta got? I'm thinking striker, but more than likely it's a hammer. Is there a hammer with a striker thing, like something like that you'd have to clean?
Well, that wouldn't have anything to do with the eject, right?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't even thinking. I was thinking like primer strike for some reason. Yeah, okay, yeah. So, what am I trying to think? Ejector, weak or broke or cracked?
Yeah, and or dirty, right? Crud up in there, because here's the thing: how many people never even like field strip, right? They just run a bore snake through something, or they do. Yankee had a video on this where he literally sprayed like cleaner all in his stuff and then blew it out with an air compressor. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it for interim cleaning, but every now and then, I mean, you need to really get up in and around stuff like the extractor and things like that, because, and you could have a spring issue or something going on with the extractor as well, where you've got a situation where the where the spring, it being a round spring, right, where that spring will walk or rotate around, and maybe it gets in a bind or something when it twists like that. Also, I mean, we're talking 9 millimeter, and I hate to agree with G, but potentially you've got ammunition related issues. I mean, you could have a case that swells, right, when you're firing. And especially if you're shooting, let's say reloaded stuff out of a, that's been previously shot in a Glock, let's say, like an unsupported chamber. So, ammunition plays a role in that. So mindful of that as well.
When it's first created, it's all true spec and everything's good to go. It gets shot in a chamber that's larger than spec, or that's just not, it gets shot, so it's now open as high as the tolerances can be for the chamber. And if they just don't reload it tight, or like you're saying, if it was blown out a little bit more than normal, now it might be kind of in your chamber, but it doesn't really want to leave. It's like going to have to be forcefully removed.
Yeah, like it'll slam it, like it's not oversized enough that the mass of the slide and the spring tension won't slam it into the chamber, right?
It's
But
just not going to fall free.
it's enough that it can't fall free with the extractor, right? Right.
No, normally they're not going to either, but yeah, it's not going to just pop right out. But and a lot of things can cause that, a little dimple or a dent or just a weird thing, a little extra, couple extra grains might create that on a normal case, no? Like a little bit extra pressure on a normal case that hadn't been messed with, like could still cause a tighter extraction. But I think it's the other thing what you're saying, and there's lots of different mechanisms for that extractor. It says 9 millimeter Beretta, so I don't know enough about them if they're all the same or not. But if it's a seesaw type of situation where, like Clover's saying, there's a spring over there that pushes up on one side of a fulcrum, and on the other side there's a little claw that's holding onto your rim to pull out, as the slide goes back. That's an action. That's a seesaw going back and forth. And like Clover's saying, if that spring rotates and now the little nib of the spring just all lines up and it's just a hair off, it's just a tiny trigonometry or geometry change, whatever that would be, and a little bit of different pressure is applied, and now because your range of pressure on your ammos works in this range on that gun, and you're at the slightest range for some reason with that ammo, and that spring moves a little bit, or a little crud gets somewhere and it doesn't seesaw as much, as like, that's the thing I think that people that, like you say, just bore snake, that just make things visually clean, right? Where they don't think about, maybe they've never taken apart a machine before to think about all the crud that accumulates. But think about any machine that you've taken apart where there's hinges or moving parts. Crud accumulates, dust and grime, especially when there's oil and lube and stuff involved, sweat and just humidity from the environment. If you're carrying the thing, there's all kinds of lint and garbage that can accumulate where you wouldn't expect, and that can cause a lever to not move even under spring tension. So I'd say that kind of is something that is worth checking out. Ejection is necessary for the operation of a semi-auto, and it's not something you diagnose or fix in a stressful situation, period. You've got an inoperable firearm at that point, and more you've screwed yourself over, because now your attention is diverted and a tool that you depended on is out of action. Never recommend a Beretta or a 9 millimeter. Sorry. No, Berettas are fine, just not 9 millimeters.
Yeah. And we don't know with the 9 millimeter Beretta, we don't know what we're talking. It could be a striker fired, it could be the 92, which is hammer fired, who knows. Extraction should be similar either way. But one point I was going to make is that even if we're talking about, and I don't think we know whether or not we're talking about a newer firearm or an older, but I see a lot of people, and I had this issue with a revolver recently that was brand freaking new, and I was having issues with the cylinder stop, and it was the same sort of situation in that the cylinder stop was like a multi-piece part, and the spring, imagine a cylindrical style spring going into a cylindrical style hole, right? And it was just a machining problem. It literally had a burr in that hole. So I was able to disassemble that, take me a little bitty file, and kind of clean that up, run that file in there, put it all back together, and it ran fine. It ran flawless, right? So it was some type of little machining burr, something with a process, a little chip of metal got in there. Who knows, right? So even if we're talking new firearms, keep that in mind that so many people get a new firearm and then they dismiss it and say, "Oh, that's a piece of junk. I had so many problems." And it's like, well, did you try to run down the problem to see? Because things happen. Little flakes of metal, all it takes is the tiniest little burr, the tiniest little flake of metal during machining, right? And even though most companies nowadays have pretty decent quality control, little bitty tiny things like that can create issues, are fairly easily missed. And it doesn't mean that firearm is trash or junk or anything else, even though in this case we're talking 9 millimeter, admittedly for G-Webs there. But yeah, just be mindful of that, and just chase those problems down. Odds are it's probably something very minor, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, of all the things that can happen to a semi-auto, this is, I would say, top 3 most common.
Yeah.
So it's not unusual at all. It'll happen to all guns that are semi-auto at some point. Or actually, it won't. It can happen to all guns, especially with any amount of neglect. It doesn't have to happen, and it can't happen if you're constantly monitoring the thing.
Right.
Let's see. Any of these? I should just give you a link sometime so you can look in here. Nobody's given us a. Oh, and then Weston had said, I guess, a couple of things. A whole bunch of people. So 280, you said there are a few pistols where the firing pin is the ejector.
True.
What is that? What does that mean? How can the firing pin be the ejector? It grabs onto the primer and pulls it out?
No, but I mean, it's a, how do I, just the way it's designed, right?
Oh, you mean it's the same part? Like it's a weird C
Right.
shape? Kind of
Yeah.
clamp? Oh, I didn't know that. What gun is that? Kind of weird.
The ones,
doing that.
yeah, I can't remember. I mean, they're not super common.
Okay.
Oh,
is that
I
a
can't
few?
even,
Okay, a few. Okay, okay.
yeah.
Is it, if it's a clean and still doing it, probably a spring or possibly ammo? Well, there's a concise way of helping to actually troubleshoot it. Thank you for that. So clean it, and then right away you know if it's still happening. Start looking at springs or one of those other things. But yeah, I did what I don't like, which is just pondering about the weirdest thing I've ever seen a gunsmith bitch about. Because none of that spring stuff I talked about has ever actually happened. I've just heard gunsmiths suggest it could, kind of thing in a theoretical discussion. Oh man, I just karate kidded or Bruce Lee'd a flying mosquito out of the air as I was just talking right there. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
Let's see, if the slide isn't coming back hard enough, could be a soft ejecting. If the slide isn't coming back hard enough, it could be soft. Oh, duh. So yeah, what would be doing that? Weak caliber decision for sure. Not lubed enough or some kind of binding or something. I can't think of what else would be causing it to not push back. Probably some obstruction, I would think, or like super bad, dirty.
Yeah.
So then he said that's where he's getting to. Shooting style sometimes causes it. And then 2A said, yeah, limb piston. So that's the thing. It doesn't, not such a thing anymore because there's so many nines and they don't really care because 9 isn't so sharp. But on some of those calibers that are sharp, I think is where you see it more, right? Like your, well, I guess you kind of saw it with 45s a little, depending on it. It's hard to determine what's the gun and what's just people because there are people that are going to limp wrist anything they pick up. And then there's other people that are like, holy crap, I just limp wristed this.
And you're totally right too. This goes back to the conversation we kind of had earlier about it, inertia driven actions and other things. The dang, where was I going with that? The recoil impulse. A lot of people go, oh, this firearm has a lot of recoil. And it's like, okay, what do you mean? Right? Or this firearm doesn't hardly have any recoil. So recoil impulse, there's much more to that than just it's got a lot or it's got a little, right? Like G-Web's mentioned the word sharp. To this day, 270 to me, I don't care what rifle I get behind, right? A 270, the recoil impulse just bothers me. And it's because it's a sharp. Whereas like my 50 or even a 45-70, right, is more of a slow, like gradual, it's more recoil, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's just distributed like in a slower fashion. It's not quite as
the way I describe it when I was behind the counter and people would come in and go, why would I want a 40 or something, right? Or whatever the question was, as I would say, there's calibers that push and there's calibers that torque. So your 40 and your 10s and your 357 SIGs, yeah, there's recoil, but it's a torque. You need some wrist to hold on to the torque. It's going to twist in your hand as much as it recoils. And that's different than a 45 ACP, which is barely turning. It's just pushing a big old dirigible. It's going to end a world war slowly towards whatever needs to be obliterated. So it's just barely lobbing it out there like a big cannonball or whatever. So yeah, there's hardly any torque. It's just all push. And that recoil can be a lot. Like you're saying, a 50. I don't think of a 50 torquing very much. At 50 pushes against you, and it's not even very sharp. It's just sort of a push, right?
It's just a lot, yeah. Well, it's like the difference between a 300-pound guy pushing you, right, and a 200-pound guy pushing you, right? It's going to be a different push, right?
Interesting, yeah. So because of that, if your gun is looking for something or expecting some kind of resistance or strength, or you need to be the vice, you need to be the thing. Like we talked about inertia before too. If you're not the thing that it can push against, then it's just gonna, it's like just mushing around.
Right.
Like maybe it's like having your car in mud or something, or sand, where you're not getting any traction. But I don't know, it's probably a bad one.
Yeah.
So we got a question and then we got a date. So thanks for that. We'll wrap it up here. We got about 10 minutes before the gun rights policy conference starts up, so it'll work out pretty good. The show will end about an hour-ish. And all right, so Chris says, one more question. Can you pocket carry without a holster using constitutional carry? I thought I understood that the firearm had to be in a holster. So that's a specific question for your state. Here in Arizona, the answer would be do whatever you want, because our constitutional carry is a weapons permit. We can do whatever we want. So, Bo, what's it like in Texas?
With the Texas one, the holster is only applicable to open carry.
Oh, so because in other words, you're not supposed to just carry by shoving a gun in your waistband in Texas. They want, or at least where the gun would be exposed, they want you to open carry with some kind of a holster so that a passerby might be like, oh my, that gun is open, but it's secure. So I'm okay with it.
I don't know how you would. I don't know. I mean, you could always stick you know what I'm saying? You could always stick a firearm in your pocket. You could always stick it in your jacket pocket, your pants pockets, or whatever, right? And that's concealed. I don't really know how you open carry without some kind of a holster. Just, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing, yeah, like, I mean, just jabbing a really big revolver or like a Desert Eagle in your pants, so it's big enough to be seen, but just jammed in your pants. Now, here's the thing. People act like that's such a reckless thing. I don't know how many times I've done that, because what the heck, if you're carrying 6 guns, I only got 2 hands, so I'm jamming some of them somewhere, and I'm not scratching my guns by putting 4 of them in one pocket. So it does work. And the reason they did it in those movies is because it works. And yeah, some people freak out, but it's not that big a thing. So
So yeah, the answer to his question there is if it's concealed, it doesn't matter. But the second thing, something that question prompts, is if you're pocket carrying, I would highly suggest you had some type of a pocket holster, some type of a sleeve, some type of a something, and or you're at least very mindful not to put things in. I mean, especially if you're new to carrying, you're not jamming your car keys or something down in your pocket with your revolver, because that's introducing something that can potentially catch the trigger or whatever, right? So just speaking to the safety aspect of pocket carrying, that's where some of those little sticky holsters or something could come in handy. I don't pocket carry. It's super uncomfortable for me. I don't like the weight in my pockets, but I'm just saying, if you're going to do that, be mindful of safety aspects.
So I pocket carry it constantly. I really like it. I carry in this revolver and a Safariland thing that's got Kydex on the inside, kind of like a Kydex taco. That's just where the lettuce would be. It's sewn together. And then on the outside of that, it's got a thin layer of leather so that you get the characteristics of, what's the non-smooth side of leather, the inside part of leather, how it's got that kind of, it's not sticky, but it's got that characteristic.
Yeah, it's rough. Nice. It's got a little grab to it.
Rough, perfect. Yeah, rough. And then I used to carry, when I carried semi-autos. Who the hell made this thing? I'll think of it when I'm not trying to think of it. Oh, DeSantis Nemesis, the original. Everybody else rips it off now, but DeSantis created the Nemesis, which is basically the back of a mouse pad. It's like a mouse pad turned around and made into a taco that you sew the lettuce together, and then carried that. And then there's some other styles and stuff. But for the most part, everything Clover said, when you put a gun in your pocket, you're good to go, but it's your nuts and it's your femoral artery and it's the people standing next to you that you care about that we're talking about here. So you want to cover your trigger. You want to keep your gun from getting a bunch of lint in it. If you've ever carried anything in your pocket, you'll realize that it constantly wears against the cotton in your pocket, which creates the lint, which is what gets into the thing that you got in your pocket. So your keys or your knife, think about that. You get a lot of lint created in a pocket because of the stuff that's in the pocket. So you want to keep that lint out of the mechanism of the stuff we were just talking about, extraction and operation of the gun. But you want to keep the trigger covered. You want to keep it oriented in your pocket is the other big thing that a holster provides. This one less so, but it's the size of the gun doesn't make it a factor. On these tiny little thin 380s, because I carry decent calibers instead of garbage calibers, on these little 380s, You don't want the gun to just go around. You could have a trigger guard. You can have a little Kydex thing clips over the trigger that will keep the trigger safe. But then the gun's going to be top heavy. The slide is the heaviest part with the magazine in it. Sometimes it becomes like an L instead of a 7 because the magazine is the heaviest part. You definitely, do you like the idea of having a thing in your pocket that's pointed up at your face and it's loaded? Like, no, I don't like anything about that. And so I want it to be oriented in my pocket so that it's pointed down towards my foot or next, ideally, the ground outside of my foot. So the thinner you are, the more your gun points out. The fatter you are, the more your own gun points towards your feet. Just FYI.
So he's elaborating a little bit. So I want to give you some insight on this, Chris. He says I have a mouse gun that fits in the small tap pocket on my jeans. So yeah, the watch pocket or whatever. I used to wear jeans. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. That watch pocket. I've carried my NAA revolver in that watch pocket before. If the handle and all is out, which it is in my jeans, it may fit down in yours enough that it's not a problem. But if you're talking about an NAA revolver in a watch pocket, that's a great thing because as G was pointing out, there's really no way for that to orient. And because it's a single action with NAA, the odds of, the trigger and everything else and it going off are fairly slim. Just be mindful that if it doesn't go all the way down in your pocket, in that pocket, which with my jeans, it didn't, under constitutional carry, that's a no, because that's not a holster. We're going to hit that other question, May 2020.
I'm muted. I was just going to throw in there that on my screen there, I've got a tiny picture of the holster for the NAAs. I recommend the holster because the mechanisms of an NAA are definitely susceptible to lint. Now, you're not going to be able to cram it into that same pocket, or because of that tiny holster. I mean, that holster won't fit in that tiny pocket. But like what Clover said, you probably don't want the grip hanging out. This little one is folded over, and then the little extra leather they use to make a pocket for 5 extra rounds. So that keeps the thing heavy and oriented in your pocket, but it keeps the holster heavy. So it has a tendency to want to stay in your pocket when you draw from it. So it's oriented, it's covered. Like he said, you don't worry about the trigger on one of these because it's single action. But here's the other thing that Clover didn't mention because he doesn't actually carry one. When you carry a NAA in that little pocket of jeans, you can't keep the chicks off of you, dude. So I don't know if you're married or what, but if you ever want a moment's peace, you can't be carrying around NAAs. Chicks dig them.
Yeah.
All right. So what are you saying? There's May 2020. Let's see. We probably got one from 2020. Let's see if we got one from May. Oh, we got a bunch. Let's go with the first one. Oh, interesting. We're going to end this one on an actual interesting question, a stupid gun question. I am selling the domain name www.askgun for $400. I get a lot of traffic, which is mostly because of human beings typing your domain. So I'm guessing this guy wants me to pay $400 for that domain. Where are you going to take this one?
No, thank you though. Appreciate it.
No, I mean, it's valid. That's if I had money and I was playing the domain game, $400, that's not a bad deal. It's actually a pretty good deal for one that's setting adjacent to mine and he's literally making money off of it. It's good to know that he's making money off of it. I could be making money off of it. So if I can find the damn thing, here's askgunquestions.com. It's pretty simple. I don't try to do anything more than keep my sites, educational, informational, I guess. So it says Ask Gun Questions. It's got questions. There used to be different ways that we've answered this in the past, so it's been a while, but we had some answered sections there. And then the About Us pretty much takes you just over to gun websites. So there's really nothing on Ask Gun Questions except these 2 pages, and all you've got is our logo and some links to the socials. And then I guess we do have an ad. So this is an ad for an affiliate site, like a middleman. And I go into that middleman and I say, hey, I've got websites. I got some real estate on my websites. What can I put in there? And then they said, here's some companies. And I picked Brownells. And then ideally, if somebody were to click on this, I can't click on it and show you. But down here at the bottom left of your browser, when you hover over a thing, it'll show you what the link is. And that's showing you the middleman. and then some link info. So if you were to click on this, it would create a cookie, take you over to the site, and send you on your way. In this case, probably just a general link or just a general page. But that's about the only thing I got going on the site that would be considered an ad. And that one, if you notice, when I hit refresh, it's going to show up as a different one each time because of the mechanism of that middleman. They're going to give me a selection of ads and or whatever banners, and I post it up there. Otherwise, though, we've got just links to the different answers there, some links to some of our other websites, I guess. Now, we feature on almost all of our websites, at least we try to feature some of the old Gun Channels members, especially those that are still creating content or offering places for conversation like this one. So you'll see that changes around. We had Night Strike in there. We got Gizzard, Clover's in there, some others, Ghost. And then we've got a way people can subscribe to our newsletter. So I've never really focused the websites on making money, especially my gun websites, because I like them to offer information and not be garbage, waste of time, link farms or whatever. But it's interesting. So $400, it's out of my price range. If I had a bunch of extra money, I used to buy adjacent names. Have you ever bought adjacent names before?
No. Bought any? No. Have I registered some? Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, I've never bought any.
Like bought some from somebody who squatted next to you and then tried to sell it to you?
No, I've never done that. I've had not anything. Now I had a domain for a company one time that they pulled it away from me and went with somebody else. And then about 3 years later, they contacted me crying because they couldn't access their website, and that particular place went out of business and just basically pulled the plug on the servers and everything else. And so I had to buy theirs back, and oh my God, it was an absolute nightmare. So yes, I have. Now, have I ever done it for me? No, but I have registered stuff, right, that nobody currently owned or currently had registered. I have registered adjacent, like, I would think, okay, so I want my .com, .net, .info, all to be the same, or okay, I want maybe this different spelling, or maybe there's a hyphen in there or something like that. But I don't really do that anymore. My comment was more to, that's really a tasteless, tactless way to go about doing something like that, to put that in the questions form and all of your thing. I mean, it's like, go through go through the site and figure out the contact method if you were going to do that and contact the person. Why are you spamming that just rubbed me the wrong way when you read that. It's just like, that's not good business.
No, it's definitely spammy for sure, but it's also because I don't have anything up there. If they do, it's probably just going to my spam. So maybe if they've attempted, I never noticed it, and I don't buy. But that's also a good point you made about buying it for other people. I have definitely done the dance before, but with somebody else's wallet, and It sucks. I don't like it, and it's sort of one of those things that they should make movies about, because it's definitely interesting on a bunch of levels. So yeah, I've had to deal with it, and that's why I know that that's lame. But anyway, it was an interesting question. I'm all about domains. We're going to be doing a lot more about website stuff on Wednesdays on the Gear channel. So stay tuned for that. So I don't buy these kind of names anymore, because back in the day when there was fewer websites and there was fewer destinations on the internet, it was a bigger deal to hork adjacent sites or misspellings and stuff. So I do own a couple of the, like, let's say gunwebsites.com, .net, .org, just because, well, at times I've used them for different things. But I don't want some jerk just squatting next to them, so I kind of buy the adjacent land or whatever. But I don't buy the misspellings. That's just a lot of money. I think if you're a large enough entity, it makes some sense, especially if you're maybe a church or something that's super proper, like, you got your pinky out. You don't want to have like somebody buying the misspelling, the common misspelling, or like if you have 2 S's in a row or some dumb thing, or 3 L's instead of 2, some dumb thing where somebody can buy the other one next to it and put something super inappropriate or just make a lot of money, then that's worth buying, unless you're an idiot. Like, you want to have some strategy and you can eliminate a lot of the potential there by being smart about buying your name, from or buying your name strategically, or getting your original name, like Clover was saying, getting your original website domain. That isn't something that's easily squatted. I think squatted, is that what that would be called? But you can talk to somebody who's done it a billion times, and you'll probably be better off than trying to do it yourself, especially with all the plethora of information that's out there. Can't even imagine how much crazy information there is out there about buying stuff and that kind of thing.
Right.
All right. Well, anyway, and then 2A is saying, I bought the .tv. Crump is building the site for me. Right on. It's nice to know that Crump is out there offering that service. We had Mike from guntube.org offering that. I don't think Clover does it. He can offer some consulting on it. I would offer some consulting. I don't think I want to do the legwork anymore, but I'm happy to help someone learn how to do it.
Right.
And like I say, with Clover's project, you want to talk about that project before we wrap up?
Yeah, talking about the GunTuber Academy. Hopefully, I can film another video for that here before the day's out. Yeah, not a lot of content over there, but for those that don't know, I've trying to separate out some of the various things that I've done across, on the Clover Tack channel, and switching the nerdy stuff over to the GunTuber Academy is one of those. So lots of cool things to come over there on the GunTuber Academy. So if you are a GunTuber, if you're an aspiring GunTuber, if you're thinking about it, then may follow that. What I cover over there in video form is probably, if you've watched the past live streams on CloverTac, it's probably nothing you've never heard before. But it's in quick consumption video form by specific topics, so you don't got to sit through an hour-long podcast to get one, the one tidbit you need. So a little more easy to digest, hopefully a little more easy to understand. And also the channel itself a little more conducive because it's not tied to my actual GunTuber channel. Hopefully a little more conducive to the networking between a lot of us in this niche. But also, while it's directed towards firearm content creators specifically, some of the stuff we talk about could apply to other niches as well. So if you're out there and you do watch and follow all of the different firearm content creators and Second Amendment stuff and all of that, but maybe you do cars or maybe you do makeup. Let's not be sexist here. And then some of the stuff we talk about could apply to general growth and general maintenance on your channel and stuff like that as well. Do want to point out also, G, that what is it at 8 Eastern tonight? 4-year anniversary of the lawn chair pop will premiere. So if you're out there, join us for that. There'll be a live chat while that plays. But thanks to everybody who knew 4 years ago when we shot a rifle on a live stream that 4 years later we would still be doing the stupid lawn chair pops. And I say stupid lovingly.
What is this, a live show or a premiere or what?
It's a premiere. It has to be a premiere. We can't shoot live on.
Why isn't you don't have anything for premieres to be featured?
It's not under video.
It's under video, but it's not on your homepage. At first I thought it was a live, but I think you do have a thing that pops up and says live is coming. But you don't got anything live. But do you have to have a separate show to say premiere?
Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. So thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Yeah, I will have to. What I'll have to do. No, they do not have a shelf for premieres. No, you're asking that. No, they do not. So
then it's probably like most recent or something.
So what I would have to do actually is, and I can do that, I would have to change to this and change to this. And now if you refresh, it should come up. You're not even getting the right page view. You're under, just go to the channel page and make sure you refresh it. There you go.
Yeah. So what did you do? Just told it to show my current stuff at the top or something?
No, I put that in the I put that into the the primary video, the trailer, whatever you call it, spot. And I'll move it around.
Oh yeah, yeah. At the top, like where I got my thing talking about cake.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right, so
because they do. Yeah, because they do not offer a shelf for that for premieres, which is weird. They should.
going back to my thing, I had just 3D printed 80% Ghost 50 BMG earlier on my 3D printer. So I got a whole bunch of different types of 80% Ghost BMGs, 50 BMGs. So you're gonna have to know
What is
faster
that?
bullet. That's what I'm saying. I 3D printed a bunch of Ghost 80% 50 BMGs.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. They take about 3 hours to print, but
Now,
no police knows about them.
technical question: do those print vertically or horizontally?
They print like a tower.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they just start. I'm gonna have to spittle with it, give it a primer. Now that I know more, now that I'm a 3D printing
Now,
expert.
is that white one just a half a one, or is it just look that way?
Nah, it's just impossible. You can barely tell down here. It's just impossible for my little weak camera to determine black and white in the same. I tried with the green background, but it still could barely do it down here.
Okay, it looked like it looked almost
No,
like a cross section. You know what I mean? So.
no, I hear you exactly. Yeah, no, it's just it's exactly the same. It's just that the contrast or whatever blew out a weak camera.
But how cool, like a cross section, right? It's basically, it would take essentially the same amount of time, right?
No, half the time.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. But you could do two in the same amount of time. But for a cross section, that leaves you a flat side. So for decorative purposes with things, that or a magnet or whatever, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, any caliber. Yeah. And that's the most. It takes 3 hours or whatever. A regular caliber takes no time. I made some little tiny 9mm Glocks for Legos. How cool is that? They came out pretty good too. They fit in Lego hands, and then the cops busted in and took them. But all right. So anyway, since you were talking about 50 for your pop over there, I figured I'd show my 50 BMGs. So we're definitely quarking. This is ethical 2A quarking though, because one, gRPC honestly sucks most of the time, and two, we figured we are going to do the show anyway. But you can always go back and watch gRPC. I'll be going live parallel so that we can talk shit basically and talk real 2A. There looks to be more conversation happening in this one than in the last one, which is pretty neat. Still got 100 and something people, 120 people watching it live. It's only 20 something thumbs up. We'll go over there and bitch about that to them. But yeah, we'll start going live here just to complain about them and talk real 2A while they're perpetrating. And then we've got about 4 hours. I don't think yours is going to start with about they're going to overlap by about half an hour. I think they'll still be going when you start. I think. Now yours is a premiere. How long is it, or is that secret?
It's about a half hour. It's typical lawn chair pop, which is normally 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so it's not like some spectacular.
No, it's not going to be hours long. No.
All right, and then we'll definitely be going live tonight to talk crap and to reevaluate what happened at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, to mansplain how they should have did it better, and to bitch about how we would have done it better, and also to talk real 2A. And hopefully we'll get a bunch of people that were there watching it, and or the people that phoned it in, participated via virtual video or whatever, to join us and talk shit about it, or constructively criticize the event tonight at 9 o'clock my time, which makes it midnight for the metric time zones. All right, with that, thanks everybody for joining us. We're here every Saturday to answer gun questions. It's askgunquestions.com. And thanks to the Patreons, if you see a little scrolling thing at the bottom of the screen, 150 so people, and dwindling at this point, unfortunately, make it possible for me to spend time on projects like this one that don't have ads and that aren't designed for the to increase the bottom line. So they have made it possible for us to do everything we've done. And if you're interested in buying me or Clover a cup of coffee, we recommend checking out Patreon. Of all the different sources of revenue project focused on Second Amendment might have available to us, Patreon gives us by far the most bang for our buck. Not only do they take the least amount of percentage cut, but they offer a platform that is focused on virtue, or what's it called? Um, what's that called when you give somebody
Value.
startup? No, it's the startup capital. Venture capitalism.
Venture
It's built,
capital. Yeah.
built on the concept of venture capitalism, where you at the same time you're kind of testing the market and growing a product or a project, you have the investment of time and resources by the folks that are most interested in it, and that gives us basically it's grassroots, right? It gives us the ability to get stuff off the ground that isn't commercially viable, so we don't have to cater to the masses, and Patreon gives us a platform to have a community and interactivity in a public and private selectively, but we can offer public posts, like updates to our projects or updates to the things that we're planning to do. And then we can say privately to our supporters on that same platform what's happening or updates and all that stuff. We can ask them questions and poll them. But we're doing that on a shared platform, unlike some of the storage sheds or back alleys of the internet, which are technically online but not accessible to anyone without passwords. Patreon is an open platform that's there for people who are positive and creating. So if they, for example, come to Patreon because they're supporting Clover or I, and they find out that this Patreon platform exists, more than likely they're going to check out who we support, and they're going to consider supporting those people. And there we've created a bunch of people who understand capitalism is using our resources without having a state redistribute them for us or depending on others to decide what's the best redistribution of funds at a federal level. Gives us the power of putting our limited resources directly with the least amount of overhead to the content creators or the people that produce projects or work projects that are interested in what we're interested in. So again, it's doing it in a platform with those that fosters that whole idea. So we bring people together that are doing interesting creative things, and we're doing it with people that are creating that. So it's easy to take $20 and go to Patreon. Trust me, I take $30 each month and redistribute that to 30 different projects, and it's super cool. It's the best $30 I spend all month because I get to. It's like being part of 30 different projects. All right, I'll shut up. Did you want to say anything about Patreon? I think you say something about Patreon at AmCon or something.
I am. That's my presentation next weekend. Actually, next Saturday at
You're
AmCon
just
is
gonna,
on.
you're just gonna copy. You're gonna use my audio and just get up on stage and milli vanilli it.
Probably. Probably.
Nobody's gonna be there to find out, so it's probably what he's gonna do. You know how many other real life speakers, IRL speakers there'll be?
I have no idea.
Again, appreciate everybody joining us live. I was about to hit the smeggy ending, I guess. Thanks for, there's only one person out there, so I'm saying it. Thanks for watching this in the future, if you are. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com. Do 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 do.